something people think saves them money, but actually loses them money. Story 1. If you're an art crafts person, seeing something you want and thinking, I can just make it myself and it'll cost me a lot less. That is the devil whispering sweet lies directly into the tender ear of your hubris. If you don't already have nearly all of the necessary supplies on hand, it will cost you more to make it yourself. Story 2. Buying really cheap stuff. I'm not saying you have to buy top of the line, but at least get something semi-quality so you don't have to constantly replace it. Story 3. Buying things at a sale price without knowing the average price. Stores artificially inflate prices so that they can lower them and advertise something as being on sale. Story 4. Buying the cheaper and smaller packages of food at the grocery store. The price for the amount of food is often a lot higher. It's better to buy the larger sized ones, and then maybe freeze some of it. Story 5. The buy one get one half off or with discount type of deals. Anything that incentivizes you to buy more by tacking it on as a bonus if you get it. If you're buying in bulk or such intentionally, then it's a good deal, but if you just came in for one box of, let's say, cookies for $5 and it had one of these deals. So you buy a second box too because it's discounted and says if you buy 2 it will cost $8, as opposed to 10, so you get it thinking you're saving money. Instead what you just spent was 3 more than you had to on a second box you didn't even come in for, and it repeats throughout the whole store. It's everywhere, especially in food. The flashy colored tickets, the bold letters, emphasis on how much you save, all to bait people to buy more things than they actually need, though it depends on what your actual goals and needs are. It might genuinely save you some and be good, but you could also be getting ripped off. Story 6. My in-laws would drive all over town chasing grocery sales. Milk is cheaper here, chicken on sale here, bread is buy one get one at this store, etc. Even if you don't make additional impulse buys at each store, who wants to waste that much time, energy, gas and mental bandwidth on groceries? It was like a weird obsession and was exhausting just hearing about. Like pick a store and be done with it. Change it weekly if you want to, but FFS going to 5 different stores to meal plan is bonkers. Story 7. As a tax accountant, not maintaining a separate bank account for your small business. The fees for the account will end up being less every year than what you get charged for the additional work of trying to disaggregate your personal expenses from your business expenses in the bank statements alone. Story 8. Buy now pay later debt for anything that isn't an appreciating asset or generates cash flow, like a burrito, refrigerator, phone, wedding, etc. I interned at a BNPL firm and am telling you all from first-hand experience it's a scam. Story 9. Sales. Oddly enough, I read something like something at 30 off seems like a good deal until you realize you were convinced to spend 70 more than you normally plan. Small thing, but it made me more aware of my spending habits and JFC how much FOMO engineering there is. Story 10. Cutting corners on professional equipment. A few years back I got a made-in-China arm for my microphone on Amazon. Cost about 14th what the German original did. About 9 months later one night it snapped, fell on my computer, and threw everything to the floor. A 100 item nearly cost me $4,000. I then bought the expensive German model and haven't had any problems. Story 11. Coupons. I knew somebody who drove all over the city so she could save money with coupons. The gas alone was probably more than she saved. Let's not even get started about depreciation on the car. Story 12. A lot of price matching and shopping around ends up wasting more than it's worth. Also my dad read that you saved gas money going slower, so he once added an hour to his commute so that he could save gas. Even aside from the fact that that hour of his life was worth more than the 3 cents it saved him, he had to take a longer route to do it because you can't go under 60 on the interstate. Story 13. Saving money, or more accurately, spending less on certain things. Let me elaborate. Actually, let Terry Pratchett elaborate. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vims reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take boots for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vims always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Story 14. Buying cheaply made or disposable things over and over, throwing them away instead of buying well-made things just once or twice which can last for decades or a lifetime. Story 15. Over the course of his life my father has changed his home heating system numerous times. He went from electric board to electric furnace, then stove, then oil stove, back to stove and now propane stove. Every single time he tried to convince me he was saving 20 on his energy bill. It cost him so much money that he will never save enough to pay for just one system. Story 16. Asking for pet health advice on Reddit. Shudders. I mean, them dying because you asked Reddit instead of taking them to a vet will spare you from all future vet bills, so I guess it does technically save you money. Story 17. Meal kits like HelloFresh. They cost as much as your grocery bill but you only get dinner and you still have to go to the grocery store to get other things. Story 18. Having any kind of car payment and getting a new car every year. I can understand if someone is really struggling and is living paycheck to paycheck, but I have always bought my cars in full and keep them until they fall apart. I truly don't understand why anyone would do anything other than that. It's the biggest waste of money otherwise. Story 19. Feeding your pets cheap pet food. Sure, your cat for example may happily eat that 15 pounds bag of corn-based kibble every day, but you're going to be paying a lot more in vet bills when their kidneys fail because of it than you would have paid over time for higher quality food. Story 20. Not reading labels on the shelf in stores or reading the information on the labels. It tells you what you're paying by volume. The bigger box or bottle is not necessarily the cheapest, and you can compare brands this way too. Also, the 2 for sales be 1G1 sales. A little math and time is worth it in savings. Story 21. Monthly payments. I understand not everyone can come up with a large amount at once, but things like example braces, the monthly payment was cheap, but in the end it turned out to be significantly more than paying it up front. I was the dumb one. Once I turned 18, all these places would say monthly payment options. I got excited, then in the end I was like, wait a minute, haha. Story 22. The dollar store. You're paying way more per item, but I understand their utility is to help get by when you can't afford a full item or to buy in bulk. If you're not paycheck to paycheck though, it doesn't make sense to shop there. Story 23. Growing your own food. I garden because I enjoy it, but I've always been scared to calculate how much it actually costs for the garden boxes, soil, fertilizer and pest control, not to mention my time to grow some cucumbers and peppers. Story 24. Do you want to save money by purchasing fast, cheap fashion? A huge error. I used to do it, but I was always changing my clothes. Purchasing high-quality items may seem costly up front, but it prevents me from overspending and frustration. Real savings involves long-term planning rather band-aid solutions. Story 25. Having a big gas tank. I hear people talk about I get 400 miles on a tank and only fill every 2 weeks, but they get 15 miles per gallon. Saves you time but not money versus an efficient car that has better fuel economy. Story 26. Shopping at thrift stores or discount stores. I tend to overbuy or buy because it's a good deal when I don't need it. Obviously, this applies to people like me, undisciplined impulse shopper. Story 27. Going to multiple supermarkets every week to get the best deals instead of buying it all in one place. Once you tot up the fuel costs for driving around for the best deals, the 20p you saved on that tin of beans isn't really worth the hassle. Story 28. Car idling for 10 minutes to get gas that's cheaper by 3 cents than the other station on the other side of the street, while there is no line at the slightly more expensive station. Story 29. Your spouse. You think it's great it's 2 of you and double the income, but you get caught up in a mortgage, you have kids, you book vacations, then you're in debt in the endgame, LMAO. Story 30. Turning their air conditioning heat off when they aren't home. This makes it work harder to bring the house back up to temp and costs more money than just leaving it on. Story 31. Buying in bulk. People think they're saving money by purchasing large quantities at a discount, but if the items expire or go unused at all, it ends up wasting money. Bulk buying only saves money when it's for items you consistently use, know exactly how long it takes to consume it, and that can be stored properly. Story 32. Homeownership at a high interest rate. I've heard many people say they bought because they wanted to stop throwing away money on rent, without realizing that over 90% of their mortgage payment for the first decade of ownership is paying the bank for interest, the government for property taxes. Story 33. The dollar store. Take diapers for example. Yeah, the pack is cheaper, but when I looked at my unit price, it was $39 a diaper, compared to the same brand at Walmart for $28 a diaper. Most dollar store name brands are this way. Story 34. I can't believe that it's not the top comment. Not buying insurance, pet, car, home, income, travel. I never thought I'd have an accident. Said every uninsured person ever after an accident. Oh, so the rest of us buy insurance because we know for sure we're going to have an accident, right? Story 35. Discounts. You wouldn't even buy the product, but then you see it is discounted so you buy it. Instead of spending 0 you spend X and think that you saved money. Story 36. Savings accounts. The interest rates are laughable. Unless you have a lot of money in a high-yield savings account, you're not getting any significant interest. Eating out, by the time you get done ordering the food, the drinks, the apps, the main course, tip, gratuity, tax, you're losing money big time. And even more so if you stay home and use DoorDash, you're better off cooking out own dinner, or even nuking a Hot Pocket in your microwave. Story 37. For something like 80% of people, credit cards. You can absolutely save money with cashback if you pay it off every month, but the reality is that most people don't. Story 38. Paying so much attention to small expenses that you have none left for the big ones. If you're occupied darning socks and bringing coffee from home, and as a result too busy to research and present why you deserve a raise, you're not being frugal. Story 39. Booking a 6 a.m. flight because it's cheap, then needing to wake up super early and call an Uber to the airport. The flight might seem 30 cheaper, but it probably costs more to get to the airport at that time. Story 40. Having the heating turned off then turning it on for an hour or so a day. Boilers aren't designed to work like that, and nor are houses. Turn it on to your desired temperature and leave it alone. Story 41. Buying cheap tools or appliances that break in 6 months, then doing it again like it's not slowly draining your wallet. Sometimes saving money means spending a little more once instead of bleeding cash forever. Story 42. I'm in the Amazon Vine program where you get free products of your choice in exchange for reviews. Well, it's taxable income, so basically it's a large discount, but still significant, except the products are mostly brandless or keyboard smash brand junk. There's some good stuff, but they can take a lot of time to find and grab quickly because there's high demand for anything halfway decent. People are like, I got this expensive margarita machine for cheap, I mean yeah, but it's gonna break after 4 uses and doesn't have a warranty. At the end of the day, I see a lot of people buying stuff they would have never considered had it not been heavily discounted, which actually isn't saving you money in the long run. Story 43 Insurance. People want insurance to pay for everything when they really should be just paying for insurance to keep them from going bankrupt. You have too much coverage if you can afford to pay for part. Whatever you can afford to lose should be your deductible. Story 44 DIY Projects. I have a pretty darn good home workshop. I can build just about anything, and I have a good deal of experience and an engineering degree, so when I get friends saying how, it must be great to save on DIY projects, like building my own wooden furniture, nope. You think custom-sourced hardwood and all these tools are cheaper than something mass-produced at a factory and sold through chain shops? Absolutely not. Same goes for when my friends want advice on maybe building a room in their house for example. My advice is, get a professional. You're going to do it half-assed, and likely have a terrible result that you'll just want to redo down the line. And who knows what problems you could cause if you do it wrong. Pay the money, get it done right, or it's going to cost you more. Story 45 Spending money on cheap shoes, particularly cheap work shoes. I used to tell my colleges, to take work out of it, do you want to feel miserable and tired, because you wore cheap shoes all day, or do you want to feel like you can enjoy your time off, because your feet feel great? Story 46 Buying more than they need of anything because it's cheaper per ounce. Most of the time the excess is thrown out. You should buy smaller sizes first and only buy a bigger size if you finish the small in a reasonable amount of time. Applies to most consumables, food, cleaning supplies, perfume, makeup, soaps, etc. Story 47 Buying dumb. Like you're an adult, the toys you display in your home don't make you cool, nor give you status, and the happiness is fleeting and self-defeating over time. They just make profits for corporations who seek to enslave you to shareholders. Don't try to save money. Don't use your time to earn money. Use money to buy time. Things you buy or own should save you time. Because time is the one thing you can't buy back. Dishwashers and clothes dryers buy time back. Owning 10 million buys you all of the rest of the time that you could possibly have in this life. Then, you don't have to give your time to anything unless you want to. It buys agency. This is why the poor need to revolt. The rich are getting you to spend your time to save theirs. It's so they can enjoy the few precious moments we have on this earth, which can only happen when slaves work for them, slaves who suffer, and do not enjoy much. A system of slavery burns the planet, but it doesn't have to be this way. Eat the rich. Story 48 Keeping cash in savings accounts. Inflation is guaranteed to eat away at the value. Emergency savings and then savings for specific purposes only. Keep everything else invested. Story 49 Just about anything you buy on Black Friday. Sure the prices are slashed, but you're running into a shop and to impulse buy anything you see without a second thought on whether you need it just because it looks cheap, that buying the thing later if you do want it. Story 50 Buying the size of the product that is the cheapest in absolute terms, not in relative terms. The tiny dollar store bottle of detergent is more expensive than the big bottle of the same brand you get in other stores. A package with 2 rolls of toilet paper costs more per roll than a big package of the same brand and quality. It makes some sense to buy small packages for things that easily spoil or that you don't need often, but for most stuff that is not perishable and that you use regularly, buying in bulk is cheapest. Buying small packages because you can't afford the big ones actually makes you poorer and gets you deeper in debt. Story 51 Driving around to different stores to save money on grocery items. You're gonna drive 15 minutes to another store because they cantaloupe for one off. The cost of gas and your time means you're losing money. Story 52 Snacks that are processed food. It's just making people hungrier, fatter, and shortening their lives. Food industry scam is what it is. Multiple ways it's costing money both short and long term. Story 53 Perusing the aisles of any store. Use an app to prepay for only what you need, then do a curbside pickup to avoid impulse shopping. I haven't entered a grocery store in 9 years. Cut my food bill in half. Story 54 Having too much withheld in taxes, and then getting a big return. If you're doing that, you're wasting your money. You're letting the government have it for free for a year, without paying you interest. You'd be better off trying to hit closer to the zero mark, or even paying a small amount when filing. That way you'd be able to put that money into a savings account, IRA, or investments and make it work for you, rather than throwing away its potential by sitting in the hands of the government for a year. Story 55 Using coupons at the grocery store. Have you ever seen a coupon for fresh produce, or rice, or a whole chicken, or a store-brand paper towel? They give you a discount on items that are still, with a coupon, more expensive than buying a store-brand or an unprocessed food. Story 56 Buying a car when the upfront cost of that car is less than the cost of repairing the car they already have. It's an apples to oranges comparison that often comes with hidden costs associated with the newer car. Story 57 Coupons for things you had no intention on buying. My mother filled several homes with food items she never used because she had a coupon or it was on sale. She never used any of it, but she couldn't get rid of it either. She is an extreme hoarder and ended up with a pantry moth infestation that she denied and brought from place to place. She would keep rotten meat in her car because she bought it on sale and then forgot about it, and her car was filled with so many other things she got a good deal on. Her fridge and freezer broke, and she kept bins of rotten meat in her living room because she couldn't handle the thought of throwing something away. I digress. Coupons is my answer in short form. Story 58 Buying the 80-20 ground beef. It's cheaper, but most people are straining that 20 of the total weight in fat out as grease. costs more to buy the 973 up front, but it's almost all meat, so you're not literally throwing 20 of it away.